This video is brought to you by channel partner 4 years running Squarespace. They've once again re-signed the channel for another year, helping me live my dream career just like they help millions of other people with their dream careers, their personal projects, their hobbies, their community building. It all happens through Squarespace's intuitive website creation and hosting tools, so to learn more about that, stick around to the end of the video. Alright, so I finally get to talk about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Funny story about this one. Warner Brothers hosted a hands-on session for select media and content creators in LA the same week of the Game Awards, and I was planning on being there that week, so I emailed them in advance, and I was like, hey guys, can I come along? And they're like, nah, and I'm like, alright, I see how it is. Lo and behold, their carefully orchestrated PR campaign exploded in their face. The press from outlets like Eurogamer, VGC, and in particular IGN were bleak. IGN went so far as to run the headline, "We played it and we didn't like it." That is not the sort of headline IGN puts out very often. The round of previews was so bad that it forced Warner Brothers to take the extraordinary step of lifting the NDA that applied to those who participated in a closed beta that happened in December of last year. That was obviously not the plan, since that's not how closed beta NDAs are meant to work, but clearly the negative preview sent Warner Brothers scrambling into damage control mode. Now, I actually played this video game. I managed to sneak into that closed beta test last year, and because the NDA is now lifted, I'm allowed to talk about it. And as cathartic as it might be to join the pylon, I will admit that I actually find myself in a different place when it comes to this game, because I actually enjoyed it, but not for any of the reasons that I suspect Warner Brothers executives might have hoped for. What I mean by that is, I cannot see how this works as a live service. Nothing about it, not a single thing, made me go, oh shit, can't wait to play this game for 500 more hours. If there was any of the secret sauce here that greases live service wheels, I certainly did not feel it, and I'm going to be very interested to see what else Rocksteady have in store to make that live service promise a more compelling value proposition. But as a single player or co-op campaign, I saw enough in the storytelling, the presentation, and the core mechanics to make me interested in a 15 to 20 hour playthrough. I really did. For me, it's shaping up to be something like Marvel's Avengers, which had a pretty decent single-player campaign when the live service garbage wasn't doing its absolute best to undermine it. How that eventually looks for Suicide Squad, I can't say. We won't know until we play it for ourselves on February 2nd, but if Rocksteady are able to continue delivering the story, characters, and set pieces that I saw in those opening hours, then I suspect I'll have a good time with this for 15 to 20 hours, put it down when the credits roll, and then never touch it again. Because yeah, as I said, I just can't see how this works as a live service.
Setting a new recon point. Go.
So let's be clear about what I played. It was a closed beta test on PC. It was the first 3 to 4 hours of the game, encompassing the tutorial style intro, the opening missions, and culminating in a number of narrative showdowns with different members of the Justice League, namely Batman, The Flash, and Green Lantern. I never got to fight any of these guys as the beta ended before you could, so I don't have any feedback on the Flash boss battle like the media previews did, but I did play with every character, I watched every cutscene, I explored what I could of the open world, and I got in my fair share of scrapes. As I said, it was a very dense 3 to 4-ish hours. Do note that I was not able to record any of that footage, and that part of the NDA still applies, so we're relying here on trailers and official gameplay. So I'm going to say right off the top that I feel a bit sorry for Rocksteady here, because the deck is very stacked against them at this point. Whether or not they chose to make this game, or were forced to by Warner Brothers executives, this game arrives after a number of wonderfully talented single-player focused studios were essentially forced by management to make a live service boondoggle that actual fans of those studios would never have wanted them to make. BioWare and Anthem continues to be the gold standard cautionary tale, Crystal Dynamics and Marvel's Avengers, Platinum Games and Babylon's Fall, Arcane and Redfall. The results for each of those games was diabolically bad in terms of player counts and commercial performance, but we don't care about how much money these games made for shareholders. What we care about is the fact that these people could have been making something else, something good, but due to the imperatives of the live service gold rush, they were instead forced to make something that had a cash shop and a battle pass as the central load-bearing pillar, with a game haphazardly built around that. Had all of those other games I just listed been fantastic slam dunks that everyone loves, Suicide Squad would no doubt be getting a pretty rosy reception. But from the minute we learned that this was a live service looter shooter with colored guns and lots of stats and a cash shop and a battle pass, we immediately and very fairly recalled all of those other flops, lamenting that the studio that gave us the Arkham trilogy spent their time on this when they could have been making literally anything else. But I really do go into this with an open mind because I'm okay with live services if they are good. Just last year alone, I started playing both Diablo 4 and the finals regularly. Simultaneously, I'm also just quietly cheering for Rocksteady because it's always sad when these great studios make something that sucks, and it would be nice if Rocksteady didn't suffer that fate, especially given that they've been working on this for like 7+ years. Despite going in with that open mind and with that bias towards Rocksteady, I still cannot for the life of me see how Suicide Squad lives as a live service that people will play for hundreds or thousands of hours. For me, the core gameplay, it just isn't where it needs to be. Playing with all 4 characters, switching regularly between them, I got a good sense of what combat is built on, at least so far, and primarily it's about movement. Each character has their own very unique traversal mechanic that will get them up and around. So for Harley Quinn, she swings on this bat glider that she can summon on command, and Deadshot uses a jetpack, and King Shark can jump really high like the Hulk, and Captain Boomerang throws his boomerang and then he kind of teleports towards it. Most of the combat happens outdoors on the city's rooftops, and enemies are really spread out and at different elevations, so most of the combat is actually about reaching your opponent or getting a clear line of sight on them, since enemies love to erect barriers absolutely everywhere, and many of them have their weak spots on their backs. When you have them in your sights and you're in range, it really is just about left clicking on them, trying to aim for the big purple pimple if they have one to deal bonus damage. Yeah, sure, there are melee finishes and a shield recharge mechanic where you have to kind of get them low and then charge into them to refill your shields. That's kind of annoying, to be honest, but whatever. There's air juggling, which is pretty great as well. But I would say that a good 70% of combat is traversal and positioning rather than abilities and gunfire. No matter how many things I shot with my guns, it never felt really rewarding to bring down a foe, because most of the battle was just about getting to them rather than actually besting them. Speaking of guns, yeah, I mean, I really hope they're more interesting later on, because right now there's nothing to them. A sniper rifle, an assault rifle, a shotgun, a minigun, an SMG, it's a very generic arsenal when you could be designing some really fun, interesting weapons based on these characters in this universe. Maybe all of that comes later, but if the only way these weapons become more interesting is through various rarities and stat boosts and status effects like setting your target on fire, then that is going to be a very big missed opportunity. But just to be clear though, the gameplay is fun. It really is, because it's fast and frenetic and flashy and vertical, and you're very in command. Moment to moment, it is a power fantasy, and it's technically very sound as well. I do enjoy it, and I kind of look forward to mucking around in this sandbox for 20 or so hours, but any more than that, I just can't see it. So far, I think it lacks the mechanical depth that's needed to truly sustain a live service game, a game that you're meant to want to play for hundreds or thousands of hours. Obviously, it could become much deeper and more interesting later on, but you can play The Division or Destiny or Warframe for just a few minutes and immediately sense their long-tailed chops. Hell, you could even feel that with The Avengers, because for all that game's faults, the core character combat for each of those heroes was fantastic, and had the rest of the game been better, I could have seen myself playing a lot more of that game. But it wasn't, and so I didn't, and I guess most other people didn't either. And that kind of leads me into another point. One of the best parts of The Avengers was that each character's kit felt authentic to them. The starting point for each character's design was very clearly, how do you make the player feel like they are the Hulk, that they are Thor, that they are Cap, or whoever? That was also the same starting point that Rocksteady had when they designed Batman's combat, how to make the player feel like Batman. They were so successful that they not only invented an entirely new combat model that would be endlessly replicated by other games, but it also inspired the actual "it really makes you feel like Batman" meme, courtesy of, ironically enough, IGN. Suicide Squad does not have the same starting point. Here, the starting point is Captain Boomerang needs to use a sniper rifle and King Shark needs to use a minigun. How do we make that work? I cannot for the life of me understand why you would make this game and center it around really generic guns rather than around an interesting rendition of each anti-hero's core conceit. When I'm swinging on my magical teleporting bat glider as Harley Quinn, shooting an assault rifle as I float in midair, I'm having a good time, don't get me wrong. But I'm also thinking to myself, to repurpose that IGN meme, this game really makes me feel like I am not Harley Quinn. That is something that a lot of people, myself included, won't be able to get past. I do think the combat is fun, but I suspect it lacks the legs to carry it the live service distance that Warner Brothers executives are hoping for, and I know it lacks the authentic commitment to the source material that fans of this universe will be hoping for. With those things as weak as they are, it's a damn good thing that the storytelling and presentation is as strong as it is.
Well, hey there, sleepyhead. We've got an interrogation to get back to.
The Flash is alive.
And he has Luthor.
One damn thing at a time.
Yeah, looking forward to killing the Justice League and all, but, well, you know, these guns are a bit shit.
The setup for this game is actually pretty rad, and it's right there in the title. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Now just think for a moment about what it would take to kill a man who can move faster than the speed of light, a dude who can instantly conjure up pretty much anything he wants with just a thought, or Superman, whose whole thing is, basically being literally unkillable. That is a pretty cool puzzle for us to begin wrapping our heads around as we begin this story, but it becomes even cooler when you meet the people who are trying to solve that puzzle, the Suicide Squad. Freed from prison, they're given a choice: either try to kill the Justice League or get their heads exploded, courtesy of a bomb implanted in their skulls. Personally, I'd probably choose the bomb over squaring off against Superman, but that's just me. The Suicide Squad are made of sterner or crazier stuff, and so they sign up for the gig and away we go. Right off the bat, Suicide Squad kind of annoyed me because they really don't shut up, and they're constantly hurling insults at each other, and some of the jokes really land, but some of them definitely don't. It's just a lot, it's really relentless, and I did think to myself, man, I don't know how much more of this I can take. But they do wear you down. The character performances are excellent. Each one of them feels distinct and fills a very specific role within the team, meaning that the seriousness of Deadshot plays well against the irreverence of Captain Boomerang, and the ever-literal, unintentionally humorous King Shark is a nice counterbalance to the japes and double entendres of Harley Quinn. By the end of the demo, I was pretty into these characters, I really was. I was keen to see their personal journeys, how they might come together as a team, and most importantly, how they'd manage to pull off something that is, almost by definition, impossible. The scale of that challenge is really well set up in the opening missions. Very early on, you'll visit the Hall of Justice, which is the home base of the Justice League, but it also doubles as a museum, with plenty of interactive exhibits introducing you to each of the Justice League members. Replicas of their weapons and vehicles are there, these big 8-foot-tall holograms tower over you while delivering exposition, and most intimidating of all, giant silver effigies of each of them sit above the entrance to their inner sanctum. It's a very Snyder-esque rendition, painting these heroes as not men or women, but gods, and it's your job to kill these gods with shotguns and SMGs, so best of luck with that, team. It isn't just holograms and statues you'll come face to face with though. In the opening 3 to 4 hours, I came into contact with the Flash, Green Lantern, and Batman, and each of those sequences was fantastic. I won't spoil them because these moments are the very best moments that I experienced during the preview, and my guess is that they'll continue to be the best parts of the whole experience since the gameplay side of things isn't nearly as compelling. But this stuff was so good that I'm willing to put up with some pretty average gameplay to experience it. That equation is going to be very different for different people, particularly when we're talking about a $70 asking price. But I suspect that if you're a fan of capes, or you're into the DC universe, or you just like cool comic book style storytelling, there's probably going to be some price point where this will eventually become worth it for you. It's possible that the rest of the game isn't as narratively compelling as this opening, but I'd bet pretty big money against that. Rocksteady really do understand this universe. I don't think they've managed to deliver an authentic and compelling rendition of characters and events on the gameplay side, but I think they're really nailing it on the narrative and presentation fronts. Of course, the success of the campaign and story will be very dependent on the structure of the overall game, and on that front, I'm definitely at least a little worried. In that opening 4 hours, basically all the missions were set outdoors on the rooftops of Metropolis, killing waves of enemies for fairly benign reasons. This is essentially what undid the Marvel's Avengers campaign. It had some really good stuff going for it on the narrative front, and it had some pretty great linear, curated missions and set pieces, but a lot of the time the campaign was padded out with open world filler and grind. This was also a problem for Gotham Knights, which was very clearly at some point a live service game repurposed to be a more linear one and done experience, and so often the campaign progress would be stage gated behind doing open world bullshit that you just didn't want to do. It's definitely too early to judge this stuff, and I don't want to jump to conclusions, but what I can say is that this early mission design did not fill me with confidence that the Suicide Squad will abandon the frustrating mission design and game structure tropes that have held back these live service games that have also delivered a linear, story-driven campaign. But again, I do come back to what I said about the combat, which is that it's fun enough, and I'm okay with some fairly basic-ass open-world looter-shooter bullshit if you give me the right payoffs. Big character moments, cool story twists, some sick boss showdowns, etc. If Rocksteady manages to deliver on all of those other things, then that'll be enough for me, but I understand that that's not going to be enough for many other people.
Just checking. We're all seeing that thing, right?
So allow me to sum up, just so that there's no confusion on where I stand about this. Am I looking forward to playing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? I genuinely am. I liked these characters. I liked their mission. I liked the rendition of the heroes of the Justice League. I liked some of the sequences I experienced, particularly one involving Batman, which I won't spoil, but it was fucking cool. I liked the side characters. I really am keen to see how the rest of the story unfolds. I also had fun with the gameplay. I think the approach to traversal-based combat is novel. No game has done anything quite like this before. I think the fundamentals of combat are also very sound in that everything works as it should, and it does deliver a power fantasy that's over the top and silly and kind of mindless, but it is fun. At the same time, I simply can't see the live service hook. I've watched a boss battle encounter from later in the game, and I couldn't see it there. I've looked over some of the loot and customization available in the later parts of the game, and I couldn't see it there either. Most importantly, I just couldn't feel it in the gameplay while I was playing. I could feel it when I played Marvel's Avengers, it's just that the rest of the package couldn't keep pace with how well designed that combat was. I obviously could feel it the very second I picked up Destiny or The Division or Warframe or Borderlands or Outriders, hell even Deep Rock Galactic, but I just didn't feel it here. I'm hopeful that Rocksteady will deliver us a fun campaign experience and that campaign will be unburdened by the live service elements that have held back so many other games of this type. I'm really hopeful that Rocksteady pull that off. But when it comes to how much life this game will have in that live service phase, I just hope I'm totally wrong about all this stuff, because Rocksteady worked for like 7+ years on this, and it would be a real shame to see all of that work get delisted and deleted, which is exactly what happened to Marvel's Avengers last year. If this studio were to go from making a trilogy that is an enduring, timeless masterpiece to one that is unceremoniously deleted when the servers are taken offline, then that will be a real shame. Given that Warner Brothers have plenty of form when it comes to deleting their products from existence, I really hope that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League does not suffer that same fate. So as I mentioned earlier, Squarespace have re-signed the channel for the 4th year running. That is an incredible level of support. It makes them this channel's longest running sponsor, and I really can't thank them enough because their support has allowed me to pursue my dream career. I've spoken a lot about how Squarespace's intuitive and flexible website design tools allow people to turn their hobby or passion into a career, but the truth is, that isn't all Squarespace websites allow for. I mean, maybe you just want to create a personal blog, or a website for your Destiny clan, or something for a wedding, or your kid's birthday party, or a school project, or whatever. That's the thing, right? With Squarespace, creating a website is so easy that it doesn't need to be for a big, massive project or business. It can just be for something small, something personal, something just for you, or your friends, or your family, or whomever you might want to share it with. That's the power of Squarespace's tools. Even if you have no background whatsoever in web development, which obviously most of us don't, it's fine because Squarespace's beautiful templates will get you 80% the way there, and customizing that remaining 20% couldn't be simpler. But if you do want something more ambitious, then Squarespace supports all that too, with things like e-commerce and payments, a booking feature for events and clients, SEO tools to help your website get found, social media publishing tools, and of course, detailed analytics so you can see how people are finding your site and what they're doing when they get there. Best of all, it's totally free to start building a Squarespace website. You can just log in and start tinkering around over at squarespace.com. But if you want to get serious, you can visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. A huge thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.